approximately 130,000 students throughout Quebec. Vocational training is an essential pillar of Quebec's education system. It is there to meet workforce needs of specialized trades. It offers short, practical training programs tailored to the needs of the labor market. The approach is based on matching training to employment opportunities. According to data published by the Quebec's Ministry of Employment on the labor market, 80% of vocational training programs are identified as leading to jobs in fields that face labor shortages. It should also be noted that a significant number of occupations most affected by persistent shortages are related to vocational training, including orderlies, nursing assistants, machinists, amongst many others. In recent years, vocational training in Quebec has attracted no more than 1% of Canada's international students. In 2024, there were around 10,000 international students in the public system, a record year. Approximately 3,000 to 4,000 students were enrolled in 138 institutions outside of Montreal, for an average of 25 students per institution. These are very small numbers compared to, for example, the 27,000 international students at the University of Toronto. Even though our institutions have few international students, they help fill cohorts and maintain the availability of training programs for Quebecers who wish to pursue these courses. After their training, Quebecers and international students can fill jobs that are in high demand in their respective communities. For some programs, placement rates are close to 100%. However, despite these facts, the current rules is stifling the ability of Quebec to attract international students. Since November 2024, the imposition of an eligibility criterion based on the field of study and giving access to the post-graduation work permit, the PGWP, means that only 55 programs are eligible for it, down from 142 previously. By 2026, this list can be further reduced to 35 programs. Among the programs that are currently non-eligible, there are 40 programs that lead to occupations that currently face a documented labor shortage or face one or will face one in the future. IRCC tells us that the restrictive issuance of PGWPs was decided based on available labor market data. However, it is difficult to believe that all university programs have higher placement rates than vocational training programs for orderlies or mechanics. Increased spending on defense and on the shipbuilding industry, along with 3 major projects announced by the Carney government for Quebec, is creating significant demand in skilled trades in Quebec. Without adjustments, Canada will find it difficult to deliver on these strategic projects. As proof, at the end of September 2025, Accusation International conducted a survey of public vocational training centers to determine how the PGWP measure impacts their ability to attract international students. 44% of respondents reported a 50% or greater drop in the enrollment. And 20 of the surveyed institutions reported that they needed to cancel or postpone 77 cohorts during the school year. Across Quebec as a whole, this number is certainly even higher. Respondents told us that several programs have been weakened by the drop of number of international students. Some of these programs are directly linked to the investment of the current government, such as land surveyors and heavy vehicle mechanics. We're here to advocate that the Government of Canada fully recognizes vocational training in its immigration decisions. We request that IRCC reinstate access to PGWPs for vocational training programs that meet real labor market needs. Thank you for considering the fact that international students arrive in small numbers and are spread across 150 institutions across the province. They are essential to maintaining training opportunities throughout Quebec. They meet significant labor needs, particularly for major infrastructure projects in Canada. Without an adjustment, thousands of positions in fields with labor shortages will remain vacant. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vandernap. We will now start the question and answers period. Mr. Davies, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was particularly interested in Ms. Vandernap's comments, and I wanted to pick up on that. But if you don't mind, I'd like to give you a bit of a picture of what's happening in my neck of the woods in the Niagara area. As you may know, Niagara College is one of Canada's most well-recognized colleges. But one of the things I've been hearing over the last couple of months with the changes of the program is that somebody coming into Canada as an international student, in the past, if they were on a 3-year program, for example, they would generally have the ability to get a work permit for a post-grad placement in Canada. Now we're seeing, for example, that, and Ms. Vandernap, I want you to correct me if I am incorrect here, the changes the government put in place. For example, if you go to a university now and get a general arts degree, perhaps in philosophy or anthropology, you've got a better chance of getting a work permit coming out of a university than you do out of a trade school. I'll give an example. In Niagara College, we have world-class culinary program, distillery program, brewery program, and a hotel and hospitality program that services a good portion of the Niagara region. And you made mention that the acceptance of students must also be based on labor market analysis or regional analysis. But the changes that have taken place, I think, if you would comment, disproportionately impacted those that are going into trades where Canada really needs these workers, but we're now not giving them an opportunity to work here. Would you agree with that?
C'est exactement ce qu'on a présenté.
That's exactly what we said. It's true that the programs in the arts are eligible for a PGWP when everything from trade schools are disadvantaged, and it's harder to receive a work permit following that.
Ms. Vandernap, when these changes were initiated by the government, what did you or your colleagues, how did you respond to that? Because it was a severe blow to the training programs that, including Blue Seal and Red Seal programs, where Canada sorely needs people in certain disciplines in trades, particularly in construction, framing, electricians, plumbers, anything in the Blue Seal trade. To me, seems like there is unless changes are made, we're going to lose opportunities and students that we might otherwise bring to Canada for these programs and trainings. We may not attract them at all. Would you agree with that?
Oui, puis nous.
Yes. When we look at the data of our surveys, we see that the attractiveness of vocational programs saw a significant drop. That's what we're seeing. More than 50% of training centers have told us that they saw a more than 50% drop. So it has a serious impact. Jérôme is from a regional vocational training, and maybe he can tell us about what he sees in his neck of the woods. Can I go? So for the Lac-Saint-Jean region, we're in the north of Quebec, around 200 kilometers north of Quebec City. If you look at the situation of our center that provides vocational training, up to 15 of them over the past few years, between 2023 and 2024, we saw 70 new enrollments. That dropped to 55 in 2024-2025, and now we're down to 29. We're not a huge school board, but this quality is the same. Earlier, someone mentioned 174 vocational training schools across the province, and this is something we see in all of these vocational schools. If you look at our 15 programs, pretty much everyone manages to find jobs after graduation. So this means that we currently cannot provide enough graduates to fill labor needs.
Merci. Alors.
affected by the drop in the number of programs that you now
to institutional benefits, as well as temporary workers who come under the pilot rural immigration project.
I just want to further elaborate a little bit more on federal supports. Are you able to tell us how federal support programs contributed to settlement success in smaller Francophone communities like those in Manitoba? And what recommendations do you have that would help improve outreach and retention in these regions?
Les programmes fédéraux ont...
Federal programs, more specifically in Manitoba, well, there are several Francophone service providers that receive funding from IRCC to support Francophone immigrants in a specific stream. There is also the Francophone Immigration Network that works with these organizations that received funding from the government in order to better support Francophone immigrants who come and settle in Francophone communities. So if I have to give a recommendation, earlier I talked about an increase in numbers. Manitoba is part of the communities that are in a minority setting. So increasing targets needs to go hand in hand with increase of financial resources that will have an impact on the ability of these organizations to provide the proper services to all people who come here. So the more resources provided, the better stability can be provided and services can be provided to these immigrants who come to our communities.
On time, but we know that the government has invested in newcomer women support, entrepreneurship, language training. Are you able to tell us what kinds of federal support for immigrant women in particular has been the most impactful?
Très, très vite, s'il vous plaît.
Very quick answer, please. Currently, I think that there is a national strategy done with the Women's Federation. Women immigrants are part of this strategy, and this has repercussions across provinces because they worked with centers that specifically provide services to women immigrants. The strategy was launched last year and tackles issues surrounding isolation and training for women who are immigrants so they can go to school. It's an issue of employability as well as the support network that will allow these women to be part of the labor force.
Sodi. I'm going to go to Mr. Managakis in a minute, but I do want to follow up on one question that Mr. Ma had asked, and this is to Ms. Vander Knapp. There was a question around whether we should ensure that we are meeting the labor needs of the provinces, and you have said you absolutely agree with that. My question to you is, do you feel that we have sufficient local and regional skill and labor data, not only in Quebec, but across our country? Do you feel that we have that sufficient data readily available?
Je suis pas en mesure de répondre pour les provinces hors.
I cannot answer on behalf of provinces outside of Quebec. Education is a provincial jurisdiction, so we do not do studies outside of Quebec. But in Quebec, I would say yes. There is an institution that identifies labor force needs for 516 occupations. If these occupations face a labor shortage or whether there is a surplus of labor or there's an equilibrium, and that is regularly updated. so we can determine how many people we need in these fields. That's just for Quebec.
Information, I appreciate it. So thanks everyone for their questions. Before we finish up,